it makes someone like me excited to try different things.
Right.
It, this time around, I brought a a display of a store. I'm pretty sure I'm going to bring something completely different next year. Just for the heck of it,
Yeah.
because it's just so much fun to let your creative inspiration flow into a Lego build.
Well, I was gonna save this for the key takeaways, but I think I'll say it now because it has to do with building,
Hmm.
and I'm really looking forward to just working on something. Throughout we're 51 weeks away from Brickworld 2026, right? So in what am I gonna do in that time? I'm gonna go build something to display, right? And I
Right.
think it's gonna be really fun. Hello, bricks, chicks, and minifigures. You are listening to AFOLs Welcome, where we talk about all things Lego from the perspective of two adult collectors. I am your solo host, and today we are discussing Brickworld and Lego conventions. And by we, I mean myself and our special guest. As the listeners know, West is currently on a break as he moves from state to state across the United States. So good luck to West. And if you are listening to this, we miss you. However, we have a fun story today of our experience, or my experience, I should say, at Brickworld. And I've got a guest that will be joining us, and we're going to talk all about Brickworld. I will save that introduction for the main topic. Let's get into what are we building? What am I building? Yeah, actually, I had so much fun at Brickworld, I decided to instantly sign up for Brick Fair and go and display there. So I'm working on a couple new mocks right now, four of them, which feels ambitious, but I'm actually done with three and have had a ton of fun building them. I did also just get the Mario Kart set. I really wanted that Jane Austen gift with purchase. She's one of my and my wife's favorite authors, so we picked that up for sure. And yeah, I've been building a couple Lord of the Rings mocks, specifically some dioramas. I've done a diorama of Mount Doom, a diorama of the like ring wraith on the road scene from the first movie, and then a diorama of Helm's Deep, the mock. So kind of some smaller builds, and I'm working on one more diorama on Weathertop. That I should, I have it done, but I wasn't quite happy with it, so I'm kind of rebuilding it and trying some different techniques to see if maybe it turns out a little bit better for me. Sometimes you kind of get builder's block, and for me, just building really helps. So sometimes I'll just, if I know I want to make a column over there, for example, I just had to build it, do it terribly, and then kind of as I'm going, things will start clicking literally and figuratively. So that's what I've been up to on the little break. In addition, I'm planning and just doing the really preliminary plans to a larger Lord of the Rings mock that I will be using next year, and we'll be working on that throughout this upcoming year prior to conventions next year. But for now, just getting some of these Lord of the Rings mocks, done and out of the way with. I'm really content with a couple of them. I like them all. I will make sure I might even do a video on them or something, or even maybe even release some instructions. So we'll see. But there will certainly be some pictures when everything is all said and done and ready to go. And I am working a little bit with some lighting stuff too. So I've really not done much with lighting before, so I'm excited to kind of see how all that turns out. So that's what I've been up to. That's what I've been building. Let's go ahead and talk about some exciting Lego news. Exciting Lego news. So up first, I'm not going to hit everything since I was on a week break here. So just kind of maybe more recent in the couple of days prior to this episode being released. So if I missed something, I do apologize about that. Couple of idea sets revealed. A insider reward set, the idea flying moon car, the idea's friendly snail gift with purchase. Bricklink announced that Lego integration will be coming soon. The ideas build your nostalgia winners were announced, the 90s throwback competition. And there's been a lot of talk and hype about this Lego Peter Jackson minifigure that allegedly has been unknown for, I guess, 12 years. So, first up, let's talk about these couple of announcements here. We had the Flying Moon card. This is going to be a insider's reward set. So you can use some rewards points to get it on the Lego Insider website. Then there was the snail. This is a gift with purchase set. This looks pretty simple, but pretty good. Looks like there's a couple of cool prints there for the snail shells. For me, not one that's gonna really warrant going out of my way to make a purchase. However, but if I happen to, and I got this, that wouldn't be disappointing. I've certainly gotten worse gift with purchases before. Just nothing that gets me like super excited. There is, I believe, a reddish orange or red orange new leaf a piece in here, or newer coloring of that leaf piece. So if you need those, obviously this is the set for you. And then we got the 90s throwback nostalgia contest winners announced. So if you did not hear, the X-Files set was selected, as well as the Wallace and Gromit set, which I think is interesting because on a lot of our ideas episodes, we've talked about how there's Wallace and Gromit seems to be kind of one of those standard set ideas that makes it through every submission round, it seems like, or every other at very least. So interesting that this one was selected, but it's certainly a good set. I'm not like a diehard Wallace and Gromit fan, so one I will not necessarily be getting, but it's a buildable Wallace and Gromit on the tandem, or the motorcycle with the little sidecar. So it looks pretty good. And then the X Files set also looks very good. My wife is a big X Files fan. I'll have to see if she wants this one. But I do wonder, does this open up Lego to maybe some other kind of TV themes? I know they've been doing, a lot of like the sitcom studio type of sets, but my first kind of initial reaction was, oh, maybe we'll get like a Lego Supernatural at some point. But this is certainly a cool looking set none the least, and it will be cool to see actual images of what Lego comes up with here as well. It's kind of hard sometimes to react fully to these images because you never know what that absolute final product is going to be when it officially comes out. The last thing, or second to last thing I should say, is Bricklink and Lego, or they announced Lego account integration. So essentially it just means if you'll have the same login for Lego and Bricklink. uh, it'll all get you in the same ways, similar to how like Lego Ideas works currently, where you can just you just use your same username and password, and there you go, you're in. So that will be coming soon, it said. And then the curious case here of Peter Jackson, the minifigure. There is a former Lego designer is selling this item. Uh, I had never heard of it before. Um, he claims that it's a ultra rare minifigure of a director Peter Jackson that I guess came out back when they were filming the Hobbit sets. Um, he's auctioning this off. He claims only 20 of these were ever made, and the highest bid I saw is $15,000 for it. For a 1 of 20 Peter Jackson. It does have an interesting torso print of like a red polo with a blue jacket, and then the one ring as a necklace on it, and then the back of it says The Hobbit. But it's kind of interesting that this is just coming up now. Um, yeah, and apparently it's been a thing, right? So this would have happened after the Hobbit movies, literally 12 years ago now at this point, right? I think that came out in 2012. So it's certainly it just kind of shocking, but alas, this is probably not one that I will be getting. I wonder why. Um, so definitely interesting. Definitely interesting. So keep an eye on that. See if it gets a sale that's announced here, for sure. Because that maybe we'll break some records at some point with that one. All right. So that was the news. Like I said, just kind of hit the more recent stuff, because we were on a break. Let's go ahead and get our special guest in today and talk about this week's topic. Today's topic. All right. So for today's topic, as I mentioned up front, we had a special surprise guest, and we're going to talk all about Brickworld and our experience there. And the reason we're doing that is because I got to Brickworld on Friday. I got my mock all set up, went out to dinner with the fam, got back to the room, and I had a really nice email from actually one of our listeners, Phil B, who said, I can't believe I'm displaying right next to you guys. I'm the Christmas mock that's right next to you. I'm a long time listener of the show. I've listened to every episode, and I was like, well, this is really cool. So we got to talking over the week, and I was like, Phil, we got to have you on the show. It was your first Brick World. It was my first Brick World. So Phil, welcome to the show. A guest appearance of a listener.
Well, thank you for having me.
You are welcome. So, like I said, I met Phil at Brickworld. Um, he just so happened that we were literally displaying next to each other, and that he was a listener of the show. And after spending the week displaying next to Phil, I was like, hey, we gotta get on the show and talk about our thoughts. So, before we do that, Phil, why don't we learn just a little bit about you? Um, tell me a little bit, or the listeners. I'm familiar with your background, but tell me a little bit about your AFOL journey.
Yeah, sure. I was I'm a kid. I was a kid in the 80s, and during my childhood, Lego was a big part of my childhood, right? So I played with all the original Legoland sets, and I
Mm-hmm.
still sometimes have nostalgia for when I see those original four wide car designs and simple
Mm-hmm.
sets, and the things that we thought were complicated had 400 pieces, right?
Yeah.
That was the day. Um, as many of a kid would do, I grew out of Lego. I went into computers, which were the next hot thing, and then went on to partying, and then went on to studying, and then went on to
In that order too,
have
right?
exactly, and then went on to having a professional career, um, raising a family. And as my kids started, getting of Lego age, I of course encouraged that. The real awakening for me was somewhere around 2014, I think. So about 11 years ago, when I finally convinced myself to buy my first set. Again, as an adult, that was the Wally Idea set, which I
Oh,
still
nice.
have built and standing here, and I love that set. So that's where the craziness sort of happened, slowly but surely. So as you can see behind me, I have a massive backlog of sets. I compulsively buy Lego sets, although I'm trying to wean myself off of buying too much Lego, but still. There's in a month where I don't buy Lego or more Lego, right? So So that's my journey. I always, when I got back into Lego, I wanted to have a so I went back into Lego for trains. So
Okay.
actually the longer story is that, um, as a kid, my dad got me and my brother an N scale model railroad train
Okay.
that my dad and I actually built quite some layouts with. Really enjoyed it for a couple of years, probably until I was about 15. Um, and then when my kids turned 6 or 7 years old, my dad brought that train over. So we got the train and we set it up, and I realized very quickly that, well, the stuff is gonna break. And plus, I mean, you can hear an accent. I'm not from the U.S. I'm originally from the Netherlands, so um, we had to buy a different transformer, and stuff was broken, and it was just hard. And I looked
Mm-hmm.
at like little train cars that were like $100, and I'm like, my kids play with this twice, it's half broken, and then I need to buy another bucks train car. So I went to my brain immediately went to, I always loved Lego trains. Let's get Lego trains. So we bought some Lego trains for the kids. They played with it, but it was more like my thing than my kids' thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, I became a train head. I also started dabbling. I have a brickling store. I think you have one too. I have a
Mm-hmm.
brickling store. I started, funding my spending by selling some Lego. I've also sold Lego sets in my life before. So it really rolled into it very actively,
Yeah.
and participated in a couple of train related competitions when they were still running,
Yeah.
train. Oh, I forget the name of the exact competition, how it was called. But there were several competitions that ran every year when there were still uh, uh, um, magazines out.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, the old the Brick Train Awards. What was
Yes, the
the
Brick
was
Train
the
Award was a predecessor to it, and I'm always,
okay.
it was not Train Tober or Trainber. That was it, Ock Trainber. There
Okay.
we go, Ock Trainber. So I
Are you
had
sure it wasn't Septramber?
No, it was Ock Trainber, and I participated in that a couple of years, even won a prize one year.
Oh, cool.
Um, and so trains have always been the thing that pulled me into Lego, and that I will always fall back on. Um,
And as I know from Brickworld, you've got a very nice Santa Fe setup that I think West would be very jealous of. You've got a few more cars than West does, so and
right.
that's quite a few.
Yeah, that is probably my favorite train.
Hmm.
And as you can deduct from my journey, I was not fortunate enough to be able to buy that train when it was fresh on the shelves. So
Yes.
I had to spend a pretty penny on getting a whole train. But yes, I have a 12 car Santa Fe train with like the A and the B units plus
Hmm.
a full complement of cars, including a dome car that I reconstructed from the original designs. If anybody here follows Reddit, they might have seen it because I've posted it before on Reddit. So yeah, that was something that is probably my favorite train set, and I just brought it on a whim to Brickworld, and I got to run it on the big layout, and that was almost the highlight of my entire
Yeah.
experience there. There were lots of highlights, but that was definitely a
Yeah.
highlight.
So I gotta ask off script here. Orient Express, yay, nay.
I have 3 copies, one built.
Okay.
I have two more that I'm planning to build the entire Orient Express and give it a different engine,
Cars.
steam
Hmm.
engine. So I have the prep work for that is there. I have not done the work yet. I've seen some others who have done a really great job at turning those sets into a proper Orient Express train. So with the luggage
Nice.
car and some more sleepers and things like that. So that's definitely on the agenda, but it's one of the many many projects that I have on the agenda. You
It's
know,
somehow the list keeps getting longer and time keeps getting shorter, right?
exactly, and I think many a Lego fan will know that it's always easy to spend the money. It's the
Hmm.
doing it, it's the hard part, right? That's why I have this
Buying the set's the
backlog
easy
over
part.
there, right? It's buying sets is the easy part. That's super easy. Then doing something with them is where it gets tricky.
So is trains your favorite theme then?
Yeah, yeah, that's my favorite theme. I
Okay.
over the years I've gone down a couple of roads. So I'm decisively not a Star Wars Lego fan. I
Sure.
mean, I'm
Yeah.
not saying that I don't like Star Wars, but it's just never been something that I actively collected. When so my reemergence as a Lego fan coincided with, or sh- shortly after I
Hmm.
became a Lego fan again, the Harry Potter theme got revived. So I bought all of that, and for many years I collected every Harry Potter set that came out. But now that we're on the fourth or fifth iteration of the
Yeah.
same castle, I've abandoned that. So I've let that.
You don't
And
want the Great Hall and the five
the
different
five
sizes.
different versions of the Great Hall. No, I got the original Great Hall, and I mocked
Hmm.
it into a bigger Great Hall by using two sets and only the pieces of two sets. And I did that with a couple of other things, thinking that was really awesome. But then they started making four more Great Halls, and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. And then they changed the color of the roofs, and it just started looking like it was like, okay. At some point, you need to say stop, right?
Yeah.
I collect cars. So I started with a lot of the speed champions when they started coming out. I don't have all of them, but I have most of the six wides. And I have probably all of the eight wides up to this point, but that also starts hitting a saturation point
Sure.
where, where it becomes, where you start realizing you're compulsively collecting and no longer collecting it because it has fun. Um, but the larger Formula One cars and larger cars, I have a whole bunch of. So I also got some older ones that retired. Um, so I like those 1 in 8 scale and 1 in 10 scale Formula One cars. I have a
Hmm.
bunch of those. Um,
Yeah, those are good.
at some
I
point,
think
I had. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no. I was just gonna say the speed champions. I like how you said like at some point you're kind of just compulsively buying because I feel like especially speed champions where they're it's $25, so it's very accessible to just go. Well, but this is the Dodge Hellcat, or like it's
Right.
very easy to just find an excuse to go pick one up.
Right. I mean, I like buying the one. So when it started, I was buying the ones that I favorited, like the ones that
Hmm.
meant something to me or that I had an association with. At one point, I was just buying all of them. But like at one point there was this mini that was the small old
Hmm.
1960s mini plus like the souped up mini. I
Yeah,
never built the souped up mini, and I also didn't buy it for the souped up mini. I bought it for the little 5 wide mini, which is absolutely adorable. So I
yeah.
built that one. I didn't build the other ones. Um, yeah, so there's multiple themes that I'm interested in. I have some pirates. I have some castle.
Hmm.
Um, I have lots and lots of trains. So that's really, I mean, I have a lot of 9-volt trains, all the
Nice.
power functions trains, probably multiple copies of.
Do you have the
Um,
Amtrak?
um, which one?
The Amtrak. It's you're originally from the Netherlands, but the U.S. Is not known for its passenger trains necessarily.
Right.
But we've
Oh,
got
I know what you mean.
Amtrak.
The metro
the
liner.
met.
You mean?
Yep. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. This is one of those things. So I do a lot of eBay hunting,
Uh huh.
and find and sometimes I can't control myself when I see something that's too good to be true. So I ended up having two full metro liners with
There you go.
three middle cars, including one of the observation cars. With you know, so
I
yes,
expect nothing less.
now I have two.
One, I don't have one. I have two.
Right. It wasn't the plan to have two. Actually, it was one of those things like, oh yeah, I have a second one. I'll sell the second one. And
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
I at Brickworld, which is what we're going to be talking about at Brickworld, I also sold at the garage sale,
yeah.
and I
Mm-hmm.
had you talked about my Santa Fe Super Chief. I happen to have three additional engines for the Santa Fe
Mm-hmm.
Super Chief because I buy stuff on eBay, and somebody posts a limited edition for the price of a regular. I buy the limited edition, right? And
Absolutely, yeah. Of course. I
so
mean,
so I
what else
tried
are you gonna
selling
do?
those. So
Yeah.
the plan is always to sell
Right.
the extras, but getting the extras, going as far as selling the extras is always that's the extra, that's the hurdle
I've
at some point.
used that as an excuse once or twice in my life, and well, let's just say it's not been sold yet. So
Hmm.
Well, I
I
think
hear
you
you.
said the garage sale, and I think that's a good transition because, on the surface, you wouldn't think that that's why you would go to Brickworld. So, my, I wanted to get into the conversation about Brickworld. It was your first time at Brickworld specifically, right? You'd
It
been
was
to
my
others
first time as a
as a
convention attendee.
convention.
The year
Okay,
before I went as a regular public attendee.
right, right. But so what was your initial reaction of being part of the convention attendee?
So let me start with last year when I went
Mm-hmm.
for just the public days, right? So I went for the public days. I was there for about 4 hours, walked around, like what I thought was everything, looked at everything. I was like, okay, I've seen all of it. This is fun. There's some really fantastic builds. It's great. um, I'm done. Now I don't live close by Chicago, so I have a 6 hour drive to get there and a 6 hour drive back, and I was crazy enough to try to do that in one day. So I also had a reason to go a little earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I had done my 4 hours and I felt like I was good. And then people started posting, their favorite things from Brickworld, and I realized that half of them I hadn't seen, even though I thought I had systematically walked
Yeah.
the entire floor. And to the point that I was wondering if there was a secret second room that I didn't know about or something like that, right? So I had that experience. I was convinced that I was going to be a convention attendee and that I was going
Mm-hmm.
to display. But I was worried. I was worried because I arrived on Wednesday, so I did the full Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday experience. I was a little worried that by Friday I was going to be so bored. I was going to be so
Yeah.
done that it was going to be a drag. Um, Luckily, that turned out not to be the case. I think Grinch, you helped to a degree because we had some great conversations.
Sure.
But
Sure.
even I
Sure.
think even if I hadn't been lined up with you there, I would have had a great time. There's just it doesn't even cost that much more, but the whole experience of being at that convention for 4 or 5 days is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that you meet, everybody is interesting and interested. So you have great conversations. There are lots of interesting topics that the convention itself puts up, both for the public days where everybody in the public can participate, but also there's a whole range of subjects and topics that you can go to while you're part of the convention. It just kept me very very interested. I was never bored.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that was my biggest takeaway too. Was like I had been to just public shows where you just go, like you said, you walk around for a few hours. You kind of get to you think you see everything, so you're like, okay, time to go. Especially the more regional ones where it really is a lot smaller room. It's
Hmm.
like a quarter the size of a brick fair or brick world. But I was to prep for the show today. I looked up the schedule to kind of give some context of what we were talking about. Unfortunately, it's been taken down since,
Hmm.
but Brick Fair Virginia is coming up, and to just kind of give people an idea of what you would might do Wednesday to Sunday, there's GBC workshop, there's how to light your mock, there is a Lego set draft, which I think we'll talk about here or at some point today. There is how to build a vignette. There is a bingo fun night. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff that you can actually participate with and do that is just Lego related as a convention attendee. There's a silent auctions. I mean, stuff like that. I'm just looking at some of the stuff from Brick Fair to get an idea. But at Brickworld, there was other. I mean, there was the
Yeah,
Bricklink Designer Program.
I
Yeah.
just pulled the schedule up in the dedicated convention app, and it's still up
Oh, I
there.
didn't think about that. There you
See,
go.
there you
Yeah.
go. But yes, there was a lot of interesting things. So they had these brick drafts,
Mm-hmm.
several of those. There was a make and take event where you got to make your own Lego botanical flower,
Mm-hmm.
um, which was really a fun short session, right? It was a little bit of creativity, a little bit of figure out how the original designer made this. Oh, that was really nice. I went to that one. There was a mecha building workshop,
Mm-hmm.
so a mech building workshop. There was a Dungeons and Dragons session. Uh, what you know, you love this, so you'll probably talk more about this. But there was a GBC workshop, and
Mm-hmm.
the participants of the GBC workshop all built the same GBC module,
Yep.
and they then lined up all those GBC modules in a snake formation in the big GBC display. So there's lots of fun things. Also, on a complete other end of the spectrum, so there is a Lego Masters panel that's actually
Mm-hmm.
in a public session. So there are always some Lego Masters running around. I think this year, who did we see? We saw Ian and Sage. We saw
Mm-hmm.
Luke, and I
Luke.
forget what his mom's name is, but she
Um,
was there. There were some. There was Caleb from an earlier
yeah,
episode.
is that
Uh,
Cheesy Studios? Who's that? I forget
right.
his name.
Duck Bricks was
Duck
there.
Bricks.
Right. So there's a whole bunch of them that are out there, and they do a Lego Masters panel. I
Mm-hmm.
think every year on the Saturday, and you can just ask questions of the Lego Masters. It's a lot of fun. I went to it last year. It was actually really fun. I didn't go this year. There is a Lego improv comedy show with one of the
Okay.
Lego Masters in
Mm-hmm.
it, Philip Stratsma from Canada. He was part of the improv crew. It was actually really funny. I
Mm-hmm.
had a great time. It was family friendly, but lots of nice jokes in it. So it's really an all around event, and you can really it's almost 24/7. I was surprised when
Oh yeah.
I arrived on Wednesday, but with everything that I had to pack, and I left way later than I wanted to leave, so I ended up arriving in Chicago at 9 o'clock, and registration was open till 10. So I was like, oh, I have 45 minutes to get registered and quickly set up my display. um, that turned out not to be the case. Yes, registration closed at 10, but I finished
The
setting up
hall
my
is
display
open.
at
Yeah.
midnight, and people were still happily building, right? And you know that reminds me of another thing that I found very interesting was that so both you and I brought something to display. You don't have to display when you're at the convention.
Correct.
You can
To
just get
can you can just
convention ticket,
go.
right, and just go and experience the entire convention without displaying. But it was fun to see how people displayed. I mean, you had yours packed in a Amazon box, I think,
Yep.
with some padding, and you just dropped it on the table and you were done, right? I had a little bit more setup work because mine was
Yes.
larger, but it was
You
all
hauled yours in a couple boxes and a
right.
trolley and yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, and but it slid together. There were like Mills plates that I just slid
Mm-hmm.
together and clicked together. I spent a good hour detangling all my lighting wires. That was a mistake on my end, but it was fairly simple. But there's people that show up that literally just have bags of bricks and just start building their display right there on the spot. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, wow, that's a whole new level
Yeah.
of setting up for an event, right? I remember there were two gentlemen who were building a big, what was it? Was it one of those Star Wars
Oh, the
robots with the dangling arms? How is that called again? That thing?
not the is it the probe droid, right?
Yes,
Or
yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah,
think
the Imperial probe droid
yeah.
from Hoth. Yeah.
It was a huge model, but they were like building it there on the spot and drilling holes in like
Yep.
wood and metal constructions, and it was
I saw
very
them Friday
interesting.
morning and I nodded and was, in my head I'm like, good luck. And then came back Saturday and I was like, it's done. There you go. It's
Exactly. And then yours was what, like a 48 by 48 base plate size
not
roughly,
yeah, not
right?
honestly, I think it was like 50 by like 30.
Right.
Not even, yeah. So
And then you have those people who have a 20 by 10 foot
right.
table with
Right.
everything is their build, right? It's amazing. I
I
have a lot of respect for people who do that, and who are able to pull that off.
I mean, yeah, they're just, and there's whole team, I mean, there's whole collabs, right? Where, 20 people come together and do a giant city. And I think my biggest takeaway was kind of like we're talking about, it's just, there's just so much to do. I mean, I remember not, I 30 minutes into it, I was like, I was very underplanned for this event. I was, I had a couple people messaging me on Instagram being like, hey, you got to go to like the yard sale. You got to go do this, and I'm like, what? I'm like, okay, let me look up the schedule real quick, and I was like, oh my god, okay, oops.
So did you end up going to the yard sale? Did you go to the garage
No,
sale?
I did. I actually went with my family, and then my parents kind of met halfway. Because we just had a baby, so we were kind of made it. Hung out with them on Friday, and definitely, again, just not kind of anticipating how involved the show could have been. But it's also kind of choose your own adventure in so many ways, right? You don't you could do something every hour till midnight, or you could do a couple things and go hang out and do something else. I mean, there's so
Absolutely.
much you could do, right? You don't have to do everything.
And it's also different age groups, right?
Hmm.
They're like racing bricks or whatever that was called. They had this whole setup where you could race bricks down a ramp, which was definitely geared more towards kids, and Ninjago sword
Hmm.
battles and things like that.
The
But then,
training grounds for
right,
Ninjago. Yep,
right,
yep.
and one thing that I didn't go to because it doesn't tremendously interest me, but I always find fascinating that the people who do these things is there's a brick film festival as part of Brickworld
Hmm.
too. So there's a whole film festival where people display their brick film creations.
Yeah, because
Like a,
it's a whole other, the part of the hobby, right? Of stop
hmm
motion, that sort of stuff, right?
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit more about what we displayed. So I had Valorant, but as I heard multiple attendees say aloud, "Oh my God, it's Kroger." Why don't you tell the listeners what you displayed?
Yeah. I had I made a display of a Kroger store at Christmas. I happened to work for Kroger. Spoiler alert. Um, and this was my Christmas desk setup for a desk decorating competition that we did in the office. So I built a Kroger store with a parking lot with snowy scenes, and I had it all lit up, so it was especially magical at night. I had Santa with his reindeer flying over the
Hmm.
roof of the store, and then I had set up some fun little displays. So I had the Simpsons were shopping, and I had the whole Star Wars family shopping,
Hmm.
and I had Harry Potter and Hermione and Ron shopping. So it was like a nice little display, and it worked, right? So I
Right. Yeah.
I through sheer luck I realized that appealed to a lot of people. So there were a lot of people came over and like either they recognized Kroger or they were just immediately looking at, okay, oh look, it's the Simpsons, oh look,
Yeah.
it's Harry, right? And then the other thing that I had done was I had made put a little bit of a Where's Waldo in there, so I had some snowy animals that I hid in the scene. And then, especially for the younger kids, it was always fun to ask them, "Hey, can you find the 8 snowy animals in this display?"
Hmm.
And then it took them typically, between 20 seconds and a minute to find them, and the parents helped a little bit, and it was just a nice way of engaging people. So that was really good.
Yeah. That was one of my takeaways with your mock too. Was just how recognizable and relatable everyday life, like a grocery store is to everyday life, right? I mean, it
Hmm.
was, oh, I don't have, but like my cousin has a Kroger, and that's where I mean, just everybody, even going as far as being like, well, I shop at
Right.
Safeway.
Or Piggly Wiggly or whatever, right? Doesn't
But
matter.
like I know what this is, right? And then so I thought that was really cool. And Beyond the Brick did not interview you, but Joshua Hanlon came by and got a photo of your mock
Right. Yes.
on his personal phone. So I mean,
Right.
that is like that
Yes.
you practically won an award, I think.
Absolutely. I'm waiting for the email.
I think it was funny too because our contrast of our mocks was very interesting. Because like for me, there was a lot of people that kind of just looked at it and then moved on. Or like, oh my god, Kroger. But there was also some people that looked at mine and were like, "Oh my god, somebody brought Valorant." So it was like the five people that knew what Valorant was
I think you're
really
underselling
talked about
yourself.
it.
No, you had people come over and talk about
Nah, they
Valorant, and I was squeezed between Valorant on my left side and Halo on my right side. So I did help you from time to time because the people would say, "Oh, Halo," and I say, "Well, Valorant over here on that side." But Yeah, in all fairness, I mean, um, so we had an 8 foot table together, and I took
Hmm.
6 foot, and you got two,
That's all.
and
They gave me more than I asked for. That's all I can
and
say.
my build had 2 foot high sides or 3 foot high
Hmm.
sides. Yeah, 3 foot high sides almost. And yeah, it was a little imposing. You were a little squeezed in the corner, so my apologies for that.
No,
Next year we'll take opposite corners of the
I'm gonna
display
get
hall
some giant rotating,
with laser beams coming out
display
of it.
stand. Yeah, it's gonna have some base, And, I think that's a good thing that you mentioned though. So your display, you kind of made it a little bit self-contained, right?
Hmm.
Because you did bring just some two by fours, and you kind of had it clipped up so that it was fully self-contained scene with an actual sky and all that, right?
Yeah, I did that. That was actually something that we did, like one of the very first Christmas villages that I did with my kids. Probably 2014, 2015. By the way, another theme that I have everything
Mm-hmm.
of because I collect them, even though sometimes it's a little boring. Um, my kids and I together came up with the idea of putting base plates on the side and built and decorating them with mountains. And so we had a mountain background going behind our Christmas village, and that actually worked really well. So
Mm-hmm.
I've done that a few times with different builds. I pulled it out because it was in my cube at work, and it had like 3 foot high walls above my desk, or maybe it was 2 foot high walls. It was two base plates high, basically, roughly. So I had those walls around my cubicle. So of course, building that up with brick is going to take a fortune in bricks. For some people, as evident at Brickworld, that is not a problem. But I don't want to spend $1,000 on blue and white bricks to create a snowy background that way.
Right.
So I just put blue base plates on the side again across my wall. I had to quickly, and that was one of the reasons why I was slightly delayed. I had quickly before I went to Brickworld, I had to go on. I went to Lowe's and bought some wood and put together a modular background that I could just quickly click together while I
So
was
you did
there.
that in Chicago?
No, I did it in at home,
Oh, okay, okay,
and
okay.
I drove it up, but I did
I
it
was like,
right
that was
before I
I mean,
left.
that wood was cut, and I was like, did you?
I needed my own tools for that. I was not
Okay,
going to use
okay.
my toothbrush to cut some 2x4s to in Chicago. That was not
You
happening.
said you arrived Wednesday, but I didn't realize you meant Wednesday last month, and you sat there with your
Yeah,
toothbrush.
right, exactly. I had to fell the trees.
That's funny. So one takeaway I had, I don't know, because I had been to these shows before, but I hadn't been to the World of Lights. But specifically talking about my mock was there was a lot of people that came up to the Kroger and said like, "Oh, look at Rudolph's nose. It's lit up. You got the red light on it." And I just felt like I anticipated some engagement with lights, but one of my kind of takeaways for mock building is just a real way to just take it from a mock to Kroger to something that somebody's going to go home and like talk about is just adding some really like well placed lights. And I think you did it really well. I mean, it was just, you had a couple lights on there, but the I think the main one was the little light for Rudolph.
Well, the little light for Rudolph was actually not an original part of my display. I had always so for those of you at home that haven't seen what I built, and if you want to look up my profile on Reddit, but I just used the latest Santa sleigh set that you can buy. I think you can still buy it.
Mm-hmm. I think it's
I just had
still,
two
yeah.
copies of it, so I had extra. I had 8 reindeer, and then magically found a ninth reindeer that became Rudolph, who ran at the front of the sleigh. And as I was building this for my office display, I was wondering like, how can I give him a red nose? So I tried little rubber bands with a red 1x1 round plate on his nose, but that didn't work. And I half considered painting the nose or putting something that I could rub off like lipstick or something like that on the
Mm-hmm.
nose. And as I was displaying, I was talking with some people who were talking with me about the build that I'd made, and they were like, "Yeah, you should really do that." And they were talking about how they had an off-brand clone reindeer that had the red nose and things like that. And then, you know, a little light bulb went off in my head, and I was like, I brought my soldering kit and my LEDs and everything. I'm like, hey, I can put a red LED behind Rudolph's nose, and it will just make it look like it's red, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, then the reality set in, and like, I'm probably going to get kicked out of this building if I start soldering in the middle of a public show.
There was an experience you could go do on Saturday. You could go and just start soldering lights together. So they might
So
have just said, "Sir, we need you to go to this room."
I ended up electrical taping it all together, but it worked. I got a red little LED behind that nose, and then a couple hours later, when the lights went off, it looked really good. So I was very happy
Mm-hmm.
about that. That looked really good. But yes, back to the point of the lights, right? So on Saturday night, what is it, 10 o'clock? All the lights go
Mm-hmm.
off,
Yep.
and everybody lights up their Lego sets if they're not
And that's
they're mocks.
only open to convention
Right.
attendees. You
You have
can't go as the public. You have to be the convention
right.
member.
Now, like my mock had its lights on day in, day out, but when the bright lights in the hall are on, you might not see the effect of the lights, right? There was this fantastic pirates display. You
Mm-hmm.
also went to look at it, right? This fantastic pirates display that had like flickering torchlight everywhere, and it was amazing, but
Mm-hmm.
you could only appreciate it when the lights were off.
The
I
the
mean,
the
the lights you could only appreciate
right.
when the lights went off. Of course, the build itself was great even with the lights on. um, but that's a whole different experience, and it makes sense to build for it.
Right.
So yeah, definitely, if anybody's considering displaying at Brickworld, think about how you can light it up.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and
You're
there was that giant Jurassic Park Visitor Center too, which you just experience the mocks in like a whole different way when it's dark. I mean, especially my Valorant mock, because you can see it in the light, and then you can't see anything in the dark. So it's
hmm
it's very different. No, but with like the Jurassic Park one, for example, it's this giant rotating visitor center, and the entire back of it was just clear Lego plates for windows, and I mean you could see I mean there was maybe a foot of space that person built in of just details,
yeah,
and you just couldn't with all those really busy bright convention hall lights, you just can't see into stuff like that. So at night when they turn off all the lights, I mean clear as crystal, you can see right through those windows and just really appreciate it in a whole new experience.
absolutely. One that struck me as really nice was, there was this landing pad, the Star Wars landing pad where Slave One lands, and then
Mm-hmm.
uh, Boba Fett carries out Han Solo in
Mm-hmm.
carbonite, and they had some Camino people standing there on the side. It was a nice build. It was all dark and black and everything. But at night they had like purple or blue light around it, very delicate, and it just lit it up just enough that it felt like the night scene when that
Mm-hmm.
actual scene is in the movie, right? So there's a lot of stuff that lighting can do to your Lego set, and that it's really nice that they give that some time of day during Brick World, time of
So
night during Brick World.
so I talked about it in the "What Are We Building" section of this episode before you jumped on, and I'm working on a couple of mocks right now, and
Already,
I
you're already ready.
I've got my brick order just came yesterday. I've done a diorama of Mount Doom, and of course there's a bunch of lava in there. So I've got 4 flickering orange LED lights that are going to be put on the base of it that'll kind of glow and flicker and hopefully
Uh,
appear as if it's lava. So I've takeaway feedback lesson learned of the power of lights here.
I'm looking forward to Brick World 2026.
It's gonna be it, and I think so we'll talk about key takeaways here in a second because I'm gonna start rambling. But any other takeaways for displays before we kind of move on?
I think displays. This is my personal opinion. Displays
Hmm.
that tell a story are great displays, right? Where you can just see that there's something going. Where there's lots of details. Those are
Hmm.
really great. I'm not. We have to think about. There's so many different reasons why people come to Brickworld, right? There's the vast crowd of people who want to see Star Wars builds.
Right.
There are people who come for the Bionicle type builds.
Hmm.
There weren't a lot of them at Brickworld, but I from reading stuff I heard that Brick Fair Virginia has way more Bionicle
Okay.
than Brickworld.
I'll let you know.
You're going, yeah. Let us know. Let us all know. That will be the next episode. um, then you have people who are very good at building one-on-one replicas of
Right.
everyday life items, and you're just amazed at how well they build all those details. Or people who build the figurines, and like in the jazz club, the idea set,
Hmm.
those figurines. Those people who build entire scenes around that. And then there's the people who build art, like various different kinds of art, either it just being plain mosaics, or like three-dimensional art pieces, or the art pieces where you look at it from one side and it's one thing, and I forget what the name, is it a holographic or whatever that you call that.
Oh
It
yeah,
escaped
like
it.
a refract fraction thing,
Right.
or yeah.
And then or that
Prisma.
build yeah or that build two or two and a half dimensional artwork
Hmm.
where they use all random pieces and it sticks out, but if you look at it at the right angle, it's a fantastic art piece, right? There's so many different ways that people express themselves.
Yeah.
I think it makes someone like me excited to try different things.
Right.
It this time around I brought a display of a store. I'm pretty sure I'm going to bring something completely different next year. Just for the heck of it.
Yeah.
Because it's just so much fun to let your creative inspiration flow into a Lego build.
Well, I was gonna save this for the key takeaways, but I think I'll say it now because it has to do with building,
Hmm.
and I'm really looking forward to just working on something. Throughout it's we're 51 weeks away from Brickworld 2026, right? So in what am I gonna do in that time? I'm gonna go build something to display, right? And I
Right.
think it's gonna be really fun because I'm working on something that's gonna be a little bit bigger than my Valorant mock, just a little bit, but I'm gonna have more to display next year, and I'd rather do a couple of stuff similar size of what I did for Valorant than one like giant thing like we saw
Hmm.
like with Indiana Jones or the Pirates. While those are amazing, there's certain a tediousness aspect to that large of a scale that just doesn't get me super excited. I like to kind
Hmm.
of do something methodical, get it done with, and then move on and just kind of work at a little bit smaller scale personally. But what I'm really looking forward to is just this process of I'm ideating it right now. I've got sketches. I've laid down some plates and stud.io just to get an idea of size and scale. And I'm going to spend the next 6 months designing this set, putting it together, and then refining it. And the Brickworld experience is more of an annual process than it is just a weekend event, right? And I think
Absolutely.
that's how I'm looking forward to engaging next year, but specifically in a build standpoint.
Yeah, and you're saying something really important, right? It is sometimes it's good to just build smaller things, but do it around a theme,
Hmm.
right? And that way you can self-contain, you can keep it manageable, and you just make different things around the same theme. And some builders I saw just displayed various random things, and it doesn't even have to be something that you built specifically for that show. There were people who were bringing in builds from 5 years ago.
Hmm. Yeah.
I remember on Thursday, in one of my early rounds through the hall, I actually got to talk with Luke from
Hmm.
Brickmasters. Luke, the tall gentleman,
Lego Masters.
and
Yep.
Lego Masters. Yes, sorry. And and he brought his pinball machine. He had made a
Mm-hmm.
pinball machine, but he said he made it like 5 years ago or something like that, and just brought that. And it was very fun. But people just bring stuff that they have built before,
Oh,
whatever.
some stuff had dust on it. I mean, I mean, I think that's the cool part. I mean, you bring what you build, right? And it doesn't have to be this crazy special cool. I mean, obviously that stuff's really cool, but you know, it's about bringing something that you built, right?
Yeah,
And kind of
and
contributing to the larger show.
exactly. And there's a gentleman, because I spoke with him last year, and he was there
Mm-hmm.
again this year. He has this massive medieval setup, like he has a medieval town with a castle,
Mm-hmm.
and he
Was that the
says
one with the
every
fish in the water, or
oh, I don't remember that. It's a
okay,
really long, like it's like a 40-foot long build.
okay,
And he has lots of people in it, so it's full of little minifigures. And he says, yeah, he's been working on that for 20 years, and he brings it about every year, and he just adds new things to it.
yeah.
So it's one big build, and every now and then there's something new that he adds.
Adds the new, you know, this
Right,
is the new section this year, and
right,
you know,
yeah,
eventually you've got 40 feet.
yeah, yeah. That's there's many ways you can participate in
Mm-hmm.
Brickworld. I just yeah, you and I both came out thoroughly excited about just being there and
Yeah.
the experience of it. It's definitely a recommendation for anyone who has aspirations to display some of their creativity.
So and we've talked about our builds, our past experience, our initial reaction, and we kind of just took the conversation and ran with it a little bit here. But what you know registration wise, show versus convention, we've kind of talked around it, but I just want to make sure we establish for the listeners there's really two ways you can engage, right? There's you can go to the show on the weekend. You're going to go from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And that's kind of it. And you're going to go see and maybe do a workshop here or there, if there's time. But then there's the convention aspect, which we talked a lot about already. But that is more of a Wednesday through Sunday event. You're spending a lot of your time there and engaging in a lot of these different aspects. And it's funny because I mean, I must have walked the floor 3 or 4 times. I mean, probably more than that by Sunday afternoon. And I feel like I didn't get to see everything still. I mean, it's just there's so much to do from a convention standpoint. So, um, did you have any kind of thing to add there with the show versus convention experience?
Yeah, I mean, so technically there's actually even three ways, right? We talked
Mm-hmm.
all three
No,
ways,
yeah,
right? Yeah, there's you can go to the public part, but you can go to the convention to display, and you can go to the convention just to go to the convention,
sure,
right?
yeah,
I don't want your listeners to walk away with the idea that you need to have something to display to be able to attend the convention at Brickworld, because that's not the case.
correct. Yeah,
Um,
good call out.
um, the convention itself technically starts on Thursday evening, because that's when the opening
Mm-hmm.
ceremonies is, but we talk about Wednesday because that's the day that most people come in to start setting up their mocks and builds. And on Thursday they already run sessions before there's an opening session.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so it's definitely Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's yeah. I think we talked about the various ways you can
Yeah.
interact with Brickworld. I just found it there. There's so much to do. You can make it completely your own.
Well, and the
One thing,
other, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
the one thing that I regret a little bit is that I postponed uh, downloading the app with the full schedule until I was actually at the convention,
Mm-hmm.
and that meant that a lot of I didn't have my time really well planned out. So
Yeah, yeah. Neither did I.
one thing that is there that I would love to do in another year is the part draft,
Yeah,
where you bring a set of a specific, like there's a one specific set
it's
and
an
everybody
agreed
brings in
upon
the same.
set prior
Right.
to yeah. I was checking Brick Fair. They do like 20 of them. I mean, it's like every hour they're doing another set,
Yep.
so you can really do quite a few.
Yeah. Brick World had a whole bunch of those as well. Do you want to explain to
No, no,
your
you go
listeners
right ahead.
what
Go
that
right
is?
ahead.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So a brick draft or is basically where everybody brings the same set, and then you part out that set so that of every piece you have multiple copies,
Mm-hmm.
and then people take turns. I haven't participated. I've heard it had it described to me. So people take turns in picking the parts that they want, right? So let's say you're building a mock that needs a lot of trees, and one of the sets that is on the agenda has a lot of foliage pieces in it. You can bring one, and if 19 other people's bring the same set, let's say the set has 10 foliage pieces in it, and you get to pick the foliage pieces, you get 200 foliage pieces, right? So that's a good
Yeah.
way to pick the right parts or interesting parts out of a set and get them in multiples.
The idea is instead of spending $40 on a set to get 60 pieces you need, of a 500 piece set. Well, it's Lego in 2025 of a 300 piece set. You're spending $40 to get, all the copies from, five of those sets, right? Or
Right.
as many as you can get your hands on. So definitely making that, you know, the part pack a little bit more favorable for you versus, because sometimes you can't get stuff on Pick a Brick, and sometimes a Lego set is, or a Lego piece is rare on Bricklink, or there's just not a lot in circulation or whatever, right? So it's
Or
definitely just.
as you guys say, and as sort of the common understanding in the Lego AFOL world is, it's about 10 cents per piece on average, right? So there's pieces that just cost more, either on
Mm-hmm.
Pick a Brick or on Bricklink. They're more than 10 cents a piece. This is a way to get them for 10 cents a piece. Or if you manage to, get your set at a discount and you bring it in, it's even cheaper than that, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah, yeah. You get it for 20% off somewhere, right?
Hmm.
It's yeah, exactly. So that was another way to interact. It was also interesting. We talked about, all the Lego masters we saw running around, but there was also a ton of just Lego, content creators there too. Tiagio was there. He's much taller in person. There's a few that I just recognized, and I was like, oh, that's that person. Or oh, there's Ethan the artisan, for example. He just walked by and looked at my mock. That's pretty cool. There's
Yeah, Brothers
Beyond the
Brick were
Brick,
there.
right? Brothers Brick. There are a ton of people.
Yep.
Did you have any cool interactions with anybody or?
Um, I I liked the interactions I had with the Bricklink people,
Mm-hmm.
so that was fun. So
Which, spoiler alert, we will have on the show in a couple of months.
wonderful.
Yes.
Um, so I got to hang out with, or got to hang out. I interacted with the people from the Bricklink table. So this is part of the experience that we didn't talk about yet, but Brickworld asks you to volunteer as well, or gives you opportunities to volunteer. It's
Mm-hmm.
not mandatory, but they ask you, hey, can you volunteer? So I volunteered a few times. By the time I was picking volunteer slots, the fun ones were gone. So I helped people find their way to their table, but that was a very very trivial activity. So I ended up helping the Bricklink guys set up their tables, and I scored them a tablecloth and everything. So they started recruiting people to build the Series 5 sets.
Mm-hmm.
Was it Series 5 or Series 6 of the designer program? I forget. The one
The
that has
five was
the
the one they
antique
announced, right?
shop, yeah, the
Yeah,
antique
yeah.
shop in it, and there was the Pirates of Tortuga
Mm-hmm.
set in it, and the popcorn. So they had
Popcorn,
those
yep.
out, but they had to be built. So they were pre-production runs of those sets. So I got to build the antique shop there right on the spot, pre-production. Sticker sheet still had the file name on it instead of all the Lego copyrights. It was just fun to do that, right? So I got to engage with those folks a little bit. Went to their presentation as well,
At
because
a.
they did a Bricklink designer program
Mm-hmm.
presentation for an hour and a half. They gave lots of insights into how the program is run and some of the complexities of it, and even the logistics that go behind their model versus how Lego produces sets. And it was
Mm-hmm.
really very insightful. And these gentlemen are really interesting characters to talk with. Like they've been, most of them, they're now all Lego employees, but most of them
Yeah.
were no, not most of them. Some of them were still original Bricklink employees from before Lego bought Bricklink. It was just very, very interesting and very open to interact with them.
That was one of my favorite display pieces. There was they had all of the little vignettes that they weren't the originals, but like they were based off the original ones that Daniel Jezik had made that they use as the images on the website. So like if there's site maintenance, they've got like a little like person at a shop counter. It's like
Right.
store closed. And there's the little wizard. I forget what that one's for, but if you've ever shopped on Bricklink, they've got these small little like minifigure vignettes. So they had a real life build of those there, and I just loved looking at those
Yeah, the
because
selling wizard versus the buying wizard, right? I think
yes,
it's the
yes,
green
yes, yes,
versus the blue, or the blue versus the green. Yes.
yes. So I thought that was really cool. Um, and so, other than the set draft, is there any way you'd want to kind of just engage differently next year?
I'm hoping to perhaps participate a little bit more in one of the L gauge
Mm-hmm.
modular system railroad layouts. This year was the first year that they gave those people a separate room. So they had a
Mm-hmm.
massive train layout set up there. There were actually two separate layouts that they last minute merged together. So you could really run trains for quite a bit. And it's they've convinced me that I need to go make my trains 8 wide and not 6 wide. I left the convention center, arrived home, and the next morning I ordered hundreds of dollars worth of brick train depot,
Mm-hmm.
148 scale Lego train models, just the instructions and the stickers. So I'm playing around with those. I'm building a train that comes through my neighborhood here. So I'm using their designs as the basis for that and
Nice.
trying to modify it. So maybe I'll bring that one next year, and hopefully I can get it to run uh, as well, just like my Santa Fe was allowed to run
So
on
I
their
think,
layout.
how about you share your favorite part or one of your favorite parts of the show then with your Santa Fe?
But yeah, I think we talked about it at the beginning, but yes, yes, I did get to run my Santa Fe Super Chief on their layout,
Mm-hmm.
and that's
And
that's
it's a
the other.
massive layout, right?
It's
I mean,
yes,
humongous.
right. We had someone standing next to us who built the American Heritage Freedom Train,
Mm-hmm.
and that thing was like what. I forget what it was, but it was like 15 feet or 20 feet long. That was like
I think I
15 or
think he
18
said
cars.
16. Yeah, I
It
mean
was
it was 16
massive,
cars, right?
right?
And yeah,
It
each
was
car might have been
massive.
18 inches.
It ran on it. He had it run on that layout, and yes, it on one of the circles, it definitely took up half of the circle, but it was still not catching its own tail. So it was pretty amazing. And if you're a convention attendee and you're into trains, the guys that run those trains are pretty open, so you can just come and
Mm-hmm.
say, hey, I have a train, could I run it? And
Yeah,
it's
because you
likely that they
weren't
will say yes.
you weren't really affiliated with them, right? You're just like, hey, I got the Santa Fe.
I I I know some of the guys.
Okay.
Like no, like I've bumped into them in
Yeah,
previous
yeah, yeah.
Lego engagements, and one of the gentlemen that is active in those circles lives close to where I live, so I know him a bit. So that gave me a little bit of an in, but I think that if you show your love for trains and you brought something, I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
they'll let you run.
Yeah, that's very cool. So was that your only favorite or one of, did you have any other favorite parts?
Um, I mean, just being,
Yeah.
just having a display out there is just my favorite part. We saw, I think there was a bit of a mixed bag at our tables of people who stayed with their mocks and people who just
Hmm.
dropped their mocks off and then went to do other
And
things.
then came back Sunday to pick it up. Yeah.
I loved just hanging around. I
Yeah.
dedicated my Saturday and my Sunday to being around my mock so that people could ask me questions, or
Hmm.
I could inspire people to go look for those 8 snowy animals, and just engage a little bit with people and see what people's reactions were. And I think I will do that again. That was definitely my favorite part, interacting with people, and just hearing from people how what they like about what you've built, and also what they don't like, right? And you
Hmm.
probably don't get to hear that very much, but you can sometimes see it from people's reactions if they like it or don't like it, and it's just nice to engage with people.
Yeah, I mean, especially in a world where so much engagements through like social media, right? You know, it's you post a picture of your mock and you get likes, and that's, you know, you get some comments and that's about it. But it's a very different experience to like actually see that raw reaction of somebody walking up and be like, "Oh my god, somebody made Valorant!
Right.
Oh look, it's this kid, it's this is the
This
person
seed.
that I play," and you know, you just don't get that sort of experience and interaction with this, you know, thing that you've built through social media, right?
And you can also modify that reaction, right? I mean, what I mean is, somebody will have interest and notice one thing, and then you can say, hey, but have you noticed this, or have you
Mm-hmm.
noticed that, right? And that pulls them deeper in, whereas in social media, if they don't see it, they don't see it,
Right.
right? And then they move on.
Or there's a
uh,
giant arrow saying, you know.
yeah. Oh, even then, right? I mean, on Reddit, you have to scroll to
Right.
get to the other pictures, right? So most people look at the first picture, and if they don't like it, or if it's like mad, then they're not going to see all the cool details that you put on the fifth picture.
Right. Or you're so zoomed in that you're kind of, you know, part of seeing some of these smaller details is also experiencing the scale while you're seeing it, right?
Yep.
There was, you know, somebody, and I've seen quite a few images of it since then, you know, of the thing at Brickworld, was there was a big fallout mock with these giant nuclear clouds. They're really cool in all the images I've seen, but actually being there and, I mean, seeing how big the nuclear cloud was, and then also kind of comparing it to one in the distance and just getting that real different natural angle of like, this wasn't just the photo angle, it was, you know, kind of being there and seeing the sprawl of a mock versus just kind of the two-dimensional photo. Is It's just much different in person. I think that was my favorite part. Is and inversely, I love GBC, but I'm waiting for the Beyond the Brick GBC review to go up because it is just so focused. I was getting so distracted when I was trying to watch the GBC because, you know, in that it is the camera angle, and they go to one module and then the next and then the next. While you're there, all you're hearing is tink 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 tink, and I'm like, oh, but oh my gosh, this is coming up. Look what's coming up over there. I'm like, wait, no,
Yeah.
no, I just missed all of these. So it's kind of, for me, I actually kind of left being like, it was really cool in person to experience the GBC, especially to hear it and kind of be around it. But I felt like I couldn't, you know, I needed a little bit more tunnel vision to really be able to focus on some of those modules that I just couldn't. So I think it, in that case, it definitely, you know, it just adds to the experience. Or worst case scenario, something like that, right? Of going to the show, it just adds and improves the experience either way.
Yeah, I definitely, GBC is one of those examples where it's a bit of a sensory overload from time to time. If you want to try and get it all in, right,
Mm-hmm.
you have to really take your time to look at what's going on everywhere.
So I think, you know, that was kind of our experiences a little bit. You know, it's a week, you know, full weekend post, so we've recovered for the most part. I mean, is it a busy week? That's for sure. I got back later than anticipated, but that's okay. And you know, you learn for next time. But um, you know, I think I know the answer, Phil. But would you go back?
Yeah, I think I said it right. I mean, just to go back to what you just said, right? I mean, we talked about a lot of positive things about being there. The one of the one of, not negative, but one of the maybe remarkable things about it, not necessarily positive, is, I mean, it takes a lot of energy. At least
Mm-hmm.
at the level that I engaged with it, it took a lot of energy, and I was exhausted, and I was exhausted for a week after it, right?
Yeah.
Because you're literally, the way, if you want to be there and engage with it, you're on your feet from probably 8, 7 o'clock in the morning till
Hmm.
past midnight in the evening, 3, 4 days in a row. And you're continuously standing and walking and interacting and talking, and
Your voice starts cracking because it's
you,
dry and
it is intense. It is intense. If you
yeah.
really want to take it from beginning to the end, of course, I know you definitely took a few times. You took it easier, and you had
Hmm.
your own appointments, and I think that was a really wise decision. So from me, from a takeaway is, I might need to pace myself a little bit in what I do,
Hmm.
or take bigger breaks, because it was definitely tiring. Now it didn't help that I had a that we packed up at 3:30 Chicago time, on Sunday, and I was in my car all loaded by 4 o'clock. But by the time I was home, it was actually the stroke of midnight when I arrived
Yeah.
home. So it was tiring.
Yeah, I
It
think we
was
got home
definitely
at
tiring.
like 9:30 or something like that, and I left a little bit earlier than you did because again I just
You
popped my
slid
mock
that
into
mark
a yeah.
mark into that Amazon box and you're off.
I was
Yes.
like, "Do you need any help? Pick it up." And you're like, "No, no, no." I'm like, "Pop." Well, I'm done, so let me help.
Yes. Yes.
That was definitely I think a pro tip, and it was funny too because the morning of I got there late Thursday night, and then I had to actually work Friday morning, and then but that morning I had chatted with somebody at the breakfast at the hotel I was staying at, and they were from LA, and I was like, oh, you know did you flew here? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, and you're displaying? He's like, yeah. I'm like, well, how did you manage that? And then I kind of jokingly was like, one piece at a time. And he was like, yes, literally, very carefully. It is like disassembled. So he was probably one of those people that were out there, you know, Wednesday reassembling a mock from a bag because you gotta check it in your checked luggage and get
Right.
it get,
Yep.
get it there in the belly of a plane. So, but I think a pro tip would certainly be, and for the size of your mock, you were packed very well. Hey, let me. I mean, you probably could have optimized it. I'm sure as you're sitting there, like, I should have done this, I should have done that. But for the most part, it was very like it didn't take you too long to just kind of get your base plates laid out. You had it, you had a big enough container where you just let me just set this all in and go. And then for me, I think I had the ultimate hack of just literally putting it in a uh, 2 by 24 by 18-inch box and just dropping it in there. That was definitely nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Next year, I'm just going to display a couple of 2 by 2 bricks.
Yeah. Do 6 of them and be like,
Yeah.
did you know you can there's
Yeah.
over 2,000 combinations of bricks here.
910 million combinations of these. Go. Go. See how
Yeah,
far
no,
you can
go
get.
right ahead. I think they do that at the Lego house, right? They give you 6 bricks and a combination, and every there. I don't remember how many of it, but it's thousands of
There
combinations.
are like 900 million
Yeah,
combinations with six
yeah,
bricks.
yeah.
Yes.
It's
Somebody worked
insane.
that out. Some professor worked that out.
All right. Well, I think did you have any final thoughts, or I think we'll wrap
Well,
the episode.
I mean, it was very nice to not only have my wish of, hey, I want to at least say hi to the guys from AFOLs Welcome come true, but not only that, but then finding out that you're literally on the corner of my table was amazing. It was really great interacting with you. So that was just like, it really made my weekend. We had some
Awesome.
really good conversations. So I appreciate it. I really appreciate you inviting me over here. I hope
Hmm.
we've inspired some people to think about displaying, whether it's Brick World or Brick Fair or Brick Cascades or any of the other larger or even smaller. And know there's several Comic Cons
Yeah.
that have Lego presence, or AFOL community presence. It's just so much fun, to show your creativity, and you really don't have to be a master builder level, person. You just have to come up
Yeah.
with something that inspires you, and bring it, or just attend and see what other people do and use it as a way to either get inspired for your own builds or just make a boatload of pictures and
Yeah.
show it to everyone. It's it's an amazing community, very supportive. That was really, what I walked away with, and how I feel about it. I'm already super excited about next year. So
Yeah.
when the registration comes out, I'm going to sign up straight away.
Yeah, well said. And I think if you like Lego, it's the place for you. And I think I'll wrap by just saying thank you for being on the show. I think one of the great things about the Lego community is just it's so open and friendly. And the perfect example is we I showed up, never met you before, got an email saying, "Hey, it looks like we're displaying next to each other," and now you're on the show sharing your thoughts. I mean, it just it's nice to be a part of such a great Lego community here. And thank
Absolutely.
you, Phil, for coming out and sharing your experience.
You're very welcome.
Brick mail. All right. So thank you again to Phil B for joining us. I just great to have you on the show, buddy. Appreciate you coming out. Really thought it was, kind of funny and interesting, and it's a small world that, I was displaying right next to a listener. So that just a cool experience that made an awesome experience that much cooler. So thank you for being a great listener, and again also coming out onto the show. So for Brick Mail, we have a couple of iTunes reviews this week, and then we also have one piece of Brick Mail. This is from Blockhead. Blockhead says, "Just started listening to you guys a few weeks ago, and have been going through some of the backlog of episodes. You guys do such a great job. We are about the same age, so the nostalgia of some of the older series is awesome. Specifically, the Rock Raiders and Throwbots. I know you guys have a running list of episode ideas, but I would love one on adventurers. I was wondering if each of you could bring back one theme, either canceled or planned obsolescence. Which would it be? Thanks, Blockheads." So you are not the first person to request adventurers. It is certainly one that is on our list. I will be honest, we don't have it planned right now, but it will be. I think we'll try to hit it before the end of the summer. We've got quite a few guests that will be on the show in the coming months. Um, really looking forward to having them on the show. And we've got a couple of interesting topics that we've been wanting to get to coming up as well. So I know I will be most likely doing a theme review next week, but I want to save adventurers for when West is back and when it's not a solo episode, for example. So we will certainly get to adventurers hopefully before the end of the summer, and we will talk all about it, all about the world of Johnny Thunder. And then Blockhead asked, I was wondering if each of you could bring back one theme, canceled or planned obsolescence. Which would it be? That is a good question. I mean, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, I would have said Lord of the Rings. That has obviously changed since it is back. I mean, I wish we could get like a full wave for sure. But I also want to choose a non-licensed theme specifically. And I think for me, that would be like, was it the Aquanauts, um, or Atlantis? I'd like to see one of those water themes. So there was the Aquanauts, and then there was Atlantis, and I'm blanking on the theme with like the orange visored shark guys. That was a really cool theme. But yeah, I think the Atlantis theme was really cool. That actually happened during my dark ages. And one that I think was, I like that setting. I think there's a lot that you could do with kind of this mythical underwater realm. I think the sets are cool. They've done Aqua Zone, for example, before, which was maybe a little bit more sci-fi serious than like fantastical. So I like the kind of like fantasy underwater world. Um, yeah, I think that or Aqua Raiders was the other one I was thinking, which would also be cool. We just haven't had a lot of there's just not a lot of underwater Lego themes. Every once in a while they get it with City. Um, Maybe I've just got nostalgia on the mind because you mentioned it. I certainly would also really just love a castle theme to come back. And I don't just mean like the one-off medieval blacksmith. I'm talking like a Vikings village. I'd love to see them do like just a proper wave of, 5 or 6 Lego sets of a full Viking, village theme with some smaller kind of army builder sets and some kind of middle sets that inspire something a little bit bigger, and then the big village. I'd also like to see like a full Lion's Night, Knight's Kingdom type of theme come back, something like that, or the Imperial, some either an underwater theme or a historical theme like that. So I'm gonna go my final answer, as I've kind of stumbled through this. I wanted it to be raw for you, a reactionary, is going to be Castle. I wish that they would bring back and do a proper Knights theme and not just a one-off set here or there. Thank you for writing in, though, Blockhead. Great question. DWCHK, DW Chick, I'm not sure, gives us a 5-star iTunes review. Says, well done, helpful, interesting podcast, professionally presented, smart, well balanced, easy to listen to host. Well, thank you very much. And I believe you might have written in on Brickmail a couple of weeks ago. So thank you for that, and for also leaving a 5-star review on iTunes. And then 906 Bricks says, well, that kind of rhymes. My go-to Lego pod. These guys are great, intelligent, well-spoken, and just enough brotherly banter to keep it fun and enjoyable. I have a job where I am able to listen to podcasts while I work, and this is one of my favorites. Well, the favorite word is certainly a very nice thing to say about the show. We are glad that you find it insightful and intelligent, and I'm glad that you could appreciate the brotherly banter to help just keep things fun and interesting. So thank you, 906 Bricks, for the 5-star iTunes review. And that is a wrap of another episode of AFOLs Welcome. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and leave us a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you are listening to this show. If you would like to write the podcast, please email us at afolswelcome@gmail.com or follow us on Instagram at afolswelcome. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you on the next one.